All right, let's do some practice questions where we are substituting a pronumeral. Remember, a pronumeral is a letter that represents a number. So in all these problems, t is going to equal 5. So every time I see a t, I'm going to replace it with a 5. Question A, t plus 7. Notice I do my fancy little t's so that I don't get them confused with my pluses. T plus 7 and t equals 5. So as I said, every time I see a t, I'm writing 5. Replace that with 5. Now I can solve. 5 plus 7 equals 12. B is 8t. Now I know that when a number and a letter are next to each other, that's a multiplication. So that's 8 times t. So I'm going to write here 8 times and t equals 5. So it's 8 times 5, which is 40. Now this next one's a bit tricky because I've got 2 t's, but it really makes no difference because the rule is every time I see a t, I replace it with 5. So I'm just going to go like this. 10, replace with 5, plus 4, take, replace with 5. And now I solve. And remember, I'm using BODMAS to solve this. So first I'm going to do the divide. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Writing out the whole rest of the question. Then 2 plus 4 is 6. And 6 take 5 is 1. You try some. This time, u equals 3. Give it a go. All right, let's quickly go through these answers. Remember that u equals 3. So in A, we have 4u, which means 4 times u. So I'm going to write 4 times and u equals 3. 4 times 3 equals 12. B, 8 take u. 8 take u equals 3, so I'm replacing the u with a 3. 8 take 3 equals 5. And lastly, again, a bit of a tricky one because there's multiple u's, but that is absolutely fine. 2u means 2 times u, so that's 2 times 3, plus 12, oh, it's a u, so I'm replacing it with 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Now, BODMAS says I've got to do the divide first. So 6 plus 12 divided by 3 equals 4. And 6 plus 4 is 10. And 10 take 3 is 7. So you can see that in this example, when u equals 3, those are my answers. Now, u could mean something different. We could try now doing u as a 7 and we would come up with different answers. And this would still be correct for that situation. So we're just doing the letters for the numbers that we are told. Sometimes our expressions can have more than one pronumeral. This doesn't make it any different. It just means that we're going to be told different numbers for the different letters. We just need to make sure that we're replacing the right letter with the right number. Let's do A. 5x plus y plus 8. And now x is 4 and y is 7. So whenever I see an x, I'm replacing it with 4. And whenever I see a y, I'm replacing it with 7. So 5x means 5 times x, and that's 5 times x is 4, so 4. Plus y is 7 plus 8. Now you need to know, this is how you should show you're working out every time. You write out the question, then you write out the expression again with your substitution, and then you will write out solving. There might be more lines depending on how much BODMAS you have to do. 5 times 4 is 20. Plus 7 plus 8. 27 plus 8 is 35. So you can see 2 letters doesn't make a difference. We just replace with the 2 numbers. Let's try one more. 80 take away 2xy plus y. So every time I see an x, 4. Every time I see a y, 7. 80 take 2 times x, which is 4, times y, which is 7, plus 7. So 2xy is the same as 2 times x times y, so that's why I've got 2 times 4 times 7. Got to do those brackets first. 2 times 4 is 8. Now you don't have to write that on the next line, you can do the whole brackets in one go. It's really up to you. I just like writing out all my steps. 8 times 7 is 56. 56 plus 7 is 63. And 80 take away 63 is 17. You try some. All right, let's quickly check these answers for p equals 3 and q equals 10. For p, take q plus 2. Now 4p means 4 times p, which is 3, and q is 10. Now that I've done that, I can just evaluate or solve. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 take 10 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. All right, this is a big one. PQ, which means P times Q, plus 3 times Q take 2P. But it's still the same. No matter how many times the letter is there, it still represents the same value. So I just replace it with the same number. P equals 3 times Q, which is 10, plus 3 times Q, which is 10, take 2 times P, which is 3. All right, brackets first. I might do the whole bracket. 2 times 3 is 6, and then 10 takes 6 is 4. Now I've got 2 sets of multiplication. 3 times 10 equals 30, and 3 times 4 equals 12. And 30 plus 12 equals 42. So you can see it's exactly the same when we have more than one letter. Lastly, I want to reassure you what happens when we get powers and roots. Now, it's exactly the same method. I just want to do some examples so you can see. In this example, p equals 4 and t equals 5. But here we have 3p squared. Now, we're just replacing the p with 4 still. So that's 3p, so that's 3 times 4. Oopsie. 3 times 4, but that p was squared, so now it's 4 squared. See, exactly the same. We're replacing the p, we're not getting rid of that squared, it's going to stay there, and now we just solve. Remember, we do our squares first. So 4 times 4 equals 16, and 3 times 16 is 48. All right, b, t squared plus p cubed. So again, we're just replacing the letter with the number, which t is 5, so that's 5 squared, and p is 4, so that's 4 cubed. Now 5 squared, 5 times 5 is 25. Okay, so remember 4 cubed is like 4 times 4 times 4, which 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64, I think. You can use your calculator for that, but remember we have to show a full working. And then 25 plus 64 is 89. And lastly, let's do this one with a square root. P squared plus 3 squared. Now we've got to substitute first. P equals 4. So 4 squared plus 3 squared. Now I want you to remember back to our square root days. If this bar is across the whole thing, that means you have to solve what's underneath first and then square root it after. So we're going to solve it first. So 4 squared is 16, 3 squared is 9, and then I'm going to add it up. 16 plus 9 is 25, and remember square rooting is when we think what number times by itself equals 25, and 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25. So my answer is 5. You try some. All right, let's quickly do these answers. A, 4x squared. Replacing the x with 3. 4 times 3 squared. 4 times 3 squared is 9, and 4 times 9 is 36. B, x cubed plus y squared. So x is 3, so it's 3 cubed plus 8 squared. Now 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 3 is 27. Plus 8 squared is 64, because 8 times 8 is 64. And now we're going to do some math. 91. And lastly, C, square root. 10 squared take 8 squared. Now, 10 squared is 10 times 10 is 100. Take 8 squared, which is 64. 100 take 64 is 36. And I'm going to think, what number times by itself equals 36? We know 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 6, 36. So it's the number 6. Alright, I hope now that you realize that substitution is something that you've been doing for a long time. And I hope that you can replace a letter with a number. And once you've done that, you can then evaluate or solve it. I also hope that you can now see that you could replace multiple letters at a time. And that when we're doing powers and square roots, it's no different, and so you can do that too. Here's a picture of my puppies sleeping all snugly. This was after she ran away for 4 hours and got many cuts and scratches, and so had to get shaved. But still very cute and cuddly.